Hello, and welcome to the Heartfelt Clubhouse. I am your host, BBC, and I am joined with the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Baby. Introduce yourself a little bit.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nick Thomas Smith. I'm happy to be here on the Heartfelt Club. I think we're going to have some fun today, right?
Oh, hell
some
yeah.
good questions.
Yes, so we actually met, 2015, 2016?
2015, probably. Yeah.
Yep, we went to University of Arkansas. I was only there a semester. He did all 4 years.
Yes, and yeah, so really only overlapped a semester because I was a senior when you were a freshman.
And you played football there, correct?
I did.
Yes,
I
sir.
took the long route. I was a walk-on, earned a scholarship, so it was a great time. Still love Fayetteville, still go back.
Yes, so he has a really impressive story just within that regard. But out of curiosity, what kind of brought you to Heartfelt? What spoke to you?
You know what? I think that men's mental health has been stigmatized for a long time, and especially as an athlete, as a black athlete, mental health is definitely not talked about enough in the black community, definitely not talked about enough in the male community, and especially in sports. So there's so many things that I specifically went through with my own mental health, even if I didn't really recognize it at the time, that like, dang, I'm really struggling. So I just think it's important. I love to speak on it now because somebody may relate to what I have to say, and I may look like them.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Yeah, and do you kind of feel like the waves are coming where people are really starting to like be into mental health now? Like, are you seeing that change?
Yeah, I mean, I think even the NFL, which there's a lot of different things that people feel about the NFL, but just seeing somebody like Dak Prescott, who specifically said, like, I really struggled, and he went through a lot with passing of his brother and his own mental health, and but it's being destigmatized at a very high levels, which is important because the grassroots is so important, but at some point you need people with power who have a very large voice too. You need the smaller voices, but you need the large voices as well. So I definitely think it's changing. I think it's becoming way more common to say, hey, I'm not doing well. Yeah. And I think that's so important for our society as a whole.
Yeah. And as of right now, what do you do for work?
I am in employee relations for a financial investment company in St. Louis, where I'm from. And so I deal with a lot of mental health on a regular basis just because I work for a company who cares a lot about its associates. So, we tell people all the time, like, if you can't bring your best self to work, then don't come to work. Yeah. And let's figure out how we can support you through that. There's obviously a bunch of things outside of mental health that go into employee relations that I won't get into because they're not as fun. But yeah, it's become a big part of my life, and I think that's important because I've been a jock before, like, therapy was for crazy people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not crazy. Yeah. But, I've been immensely sad before. I've been depressed, and again, maybe didn't know how to verbalize that or communicate it. So I think it's important that we can help people do that.
Yeah, completely. And when you're like, day in, day out, having these conversations, do you find that can be like draining?
Oh, 100%. I think for me personally, I've done a good job of compartmentalizing. When I took on the role that I have now, they tell you that the work is inherently negative. Like, I do performance management, behavioral management, deal with personal situations with associates. So there's not a lot of times people are calling me like, Nick, I have great news for you. Like, it's usually I have bad news for you. Yes. But I really don't get tied up into it a lot. I know my bosses have told me that people struggle in the work that I do because they do get tied into it. Like, somebody's crying to you on the phone, telling you their sob story, and it's like people can't handle that all the time. So I think I do a good job of it, but I try to check myself, do my own self-test, like, hey, I know recently, or maybe a couple months ago, I told my leader I need a mental health day because I was dealing with a lot of just sad stuff, you know, and things out of my control, not really things I could, I had a say in, but I was just like, it's becoming a lot. And so I just took a sick day and said, like, I'm going to use it as mental health. Like, I feel fine physically, but like, I need a day to not do this work. And she was supportive of that, so that was cool.
How did it feel to say that, you know?
You know what? I never thought I would be the one to say that too. But like, as I grow older and reflect on experiences and start to acknowledge feelings that I have, it's easier to say. And again, I think that the idea of mental health being destigmatized makes that an easier conversation to have at work. You know, that was not something people were having at work, or like, you know, multiple things that we may get into. But it felt good. Now, people would say mental health day for just about anything.
Yeah.
So as the HR guy, people are always like, you guys don't give us mental health days. And I'm like, you have sick days. Like, if you're not feeling well, that's what it's for. But I could get off on the tangent.
Yeah.
We won't get on that.
So I will say, like, our friendship totally developed, honestly, like, I would say through social media and having conversations, not even like arguments, but conversations about differing opinions and things.
Yeah.
And you've been my voice of reason for like a variety of situations. And I think one of the most recent ones was like you telling me to pick my battles. Yeah. Like kind of what you were talking about of it being in your control, and kind of how you can choose what you interact with, right? And that can be to protect your mental health. So is that something you feel like you're strong at? Yeah. I think that, you know, before I went to therapy, and I went to therapy, I want to say January of 2020, you know, did a few sessions, but I had to let go of a lot of things. And what it taught me was that not everything requires your energy, right? Like I said, pick your battles. Like, if you see something that triggers you online, or somebody says something that's triggering, you can choose to interact with it, but is that something that you want to put your energy towards? Is it paying you? Is the interaction going to better your life or your family's life or your friend's life? Or your own ego is saying, I need to respond. Yeah. When you know that back and forth is not going to lead to anything beneficial for you. Yeah. So it's like you have drained yourself of this energy going back and forth with someone who's not going to see it your way. Yeah. And honestly, was probably trying to provoke you in some way. Right. I think people do a lot of things to get a reaction out of you, and I think the work that I do, because can be emotionally draining, because I'm often talking about bad news or negative situations. Somebody's not good at their job, somebody's not showing up to work, things like that. It's just like, I do this work where I have to interact in these situations because it's what pays me. So when I hear people get into it about things that are not going to better their lives, I'm like, why? Like, you don't want that. Trust me, I do it all day. you know, so that's something I try to preach to all my friends. I'm like, whether it's on social media or it's in a relationship, like, you know, if this relationship is draining you emotionally, you need to take a step back and do an evaluation of the relationship, because why? Yeah. You know, like, sometimes there's other circumstances where it's like, you know, a parent, you know, your parents, or you are co-parenting with somebody, so there has to be interaction there, but a lot of times it's not. So pick your battles is a good way to put it. Yeah, I remember my freshman year, I was in just a super toxic relationship, and I vividly remember one of my coaches telling me, no one should have power over your emotions other than you. And so he and I kind of worked together to realize, you know, that you can choose how you react to an extent. You know, like, you could do something that really fucking pisses me off, but it's my choice to get pissed off about it, right? Or it's my choice to be like, we're not gonna hash this out right now. Like, we both need to calm down. And I think that was definitely a turning point, but also like that takes so long to actually learn.
Right.
You know, like
Right.
I was not an adult in college. Like I'm still not an adult. But I think that's something I see in you, is like that ability, and I think that emotional intelligence is like so impressive.
Well, thank you. And I didn't have it for a long time. There's probably people who have interacted with me like, that is not Nick. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they're commenting
right,
like,
right. Nick is confrontational, you know, but I don't know. It's definitely a change over the last couple of years, because I do think I was argumentative and combative, and I always had to get my word in or get my say or be the last one to say something. But I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Like, because when you're in an argument with somebody, at that time your response means so much to you.
Yeah.
But if you just take a step back, come back to the situation maybe a couple hours, and the next day you feel so good when you're like, I'm so happy I didn't continue that. Like, you feel so good, like, because that interaction did not change anything for my life in the next few hours or the next day. But had it been a bad interaction, I may not have felt good about myself or about it, and now I'm holding on to that. So I was like, I put myself through that for what reason? Yeah.
Do you feel like maybe men and women differ in that area?
Yeah, I think so, but I really don't even know if I think it's gender specific. I think it's just your personality. Like, I know women who can be like, I'm gonna say my piece, and I know men who are like, I'm gonna say my piece, and then there's the other side of people who are like, I'm just not gonna say anything.
Yeah.
And then that triggers the side who like wants to have an argument.
Yes, of course.
So I think it's just people. I think it's human nature. You can't really. There's no like group of people who do it more. I think it's just how you were born and how your things fire in your brain.
I will say, I feel like and this is honestly just from my experience with dating, it's easier for women to be like, I don't want to talk about this right now. We'll talk later, as opposed to a man saying that.
Oh, yeah.
Because really quickly, and I used to do this all the time, I probably still will when I start dating again, and it's a bad trait to have, but I'll be like, no, we're fighting about this now, or you don't care.
Yep.
Right? And it's not even,
heard that.
There's no way that's true. It's like, you should have that space as a man to be like, I'm struggling to control my emotions right now, I'm going to step away.
Right.
We'll talk about this when it's smarter to talk about this.
I think you're 100% right there, because I remember being in those situations, and you know, we talked about it. Like, I dated a girl who was just like me, where it was we're going to go back and forth, both love to communicate, we were not going to let anything go unspoken. And sometimes you just talk in circles, because you just talk and talk and talk, and you really don't even solve anything, because you're not listening to one another. You're just arguing, like, who can get the last word in, who can sound better, who's the one that's right. And I think the people who have, again, the emotional intelligence to say, I just can't have this conversation right now, is important, and you should let those people do that. And if they don't want to have a conversation you know that needs to be had, then again, you reevaluate the relationship.
Yes.
You know, you don't reevaluate. You know, they're not gaslighting you. They're not creating a false reality. They just don't want to have that conversation. And if they don't want to have it and it's important, then maybe they're not the best significant other.
Yeah. Okay, so going back, you have like a very impressive and intricate like athletic career. But within that, you also had so much emotional growth.
Yeah. So
I definitely kind of want you to speak on your self-development. How did all of mental health look for you?
Yeah, so like I said, I was a walk-on, and for people who don't know what that means, it's where you play for the team and you pay your way. You know, you're not on a scholarship like most Division I athletes.
And at this time, college football was all or nothing, right? Like, you get a full ride or you don't get a scholarship.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Division I college football, for the most part, is full ride. There's no half scholarships or anything, at least athletically.
Yeah.
So, paying my way, tried out as a freshman. When I got to school, didn't make it, devastated. Tried out again, second semester, made it, got on the team. Like, that was the first checkbox. Like, okay, I'm here. I made it through freshman year and got into my sophomore year, and I figured I was going to redshirt, so I was like, okay, just get bigger, stronger, faster. And then my junior year came around, and I'm like, okay, this is when I think like I should play now, get on special teams. Again, I didn't have All-American aspirations. I wanted to prove that I was supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And junior year didn't go how I wanted it. Had a tough relationship with my position coach. And I'm not one of those people who was like, my position coach didn't let me play. Like,
yeah.
It was more of, he didn't like me, and I just knew I wasn't going to get very far with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can't quit. Like,
Yeah.
It's just, I didn't have quit in me. So I get to my senior year, really work hard in the off season, and prepared to like, I'm going to get a shot. Some things, the dice rolled my way a few times, and was ready to get on special teams, do that type of thing, and started to see some things kind of fall apart as the season neared. And I remember thinking like, I've been working so hard for this, and hard work had got me so far for so long, and I'm feeling like it's not paying off. And that's like the mantra is hard work pays off. And it's tough as an athlete when you're like, I'm working my tail off.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything they're asking of me, and I'm still not getting a shot. And that was very emotional for me, because at that point I had rolled my identity up in not just being a football player, but like being a contributing football player, like to really feel a part of the team. Like I wasn't there for a backpack and a jersey. Like I was there because I'm like, I know what type of football player I am. And I remember having a really emotional conversation with my strength coach about like, I feel like they're trying to break me, right? Like, why are they trying? Why? It's like I'm holding on by a thread.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, ended up getting on special teams the first game of my senior year, and just was feeling like I was living the dream. And then it was taken away for a few weeks, and now I'm back to where I was, where I'm like, okay, I'm not playing again. I don't know why. Nobody's explaining anything to me.
Yeah.
And that probably brought me to my lowest point as an adult to that at that point in my life, because I was like, this just doesn't feel right. Like I remember just driving home from practice and being like, do I even want to be here anymore? Like, did I want to live anymore? And I was fully aware that this is a thought process I've never had before.
Yes.
And that was the toughest, is like, it wasn't like I had those thoughts before, but I had some really good people in my life, and again, by the grace of God, ended up playing at Bama, which was something I had never imagined my entire life. That was a big deal for me as a walk-on, and finished the season, played a little bit more, and we get to the end of the season, and we're prepping for a bowl game, and my head coach calls me over, and he's like, will you come back for another year? Because I had planned to be done. Will you come back for another year if I put you on scholarship? So I'm just like,
what the hell?
What? Like, I still remember that moment so vividly, just being like, I thought I had already gotten everything I wanted, right? I had checked the boxes that people said that I wouldn't check. And it just like, it goes to show you that there is glory at the end of the story, but the story's not pretty. And like, you need people, whether that's friends, family, medical professionals. There's sometimes people that have to dig you up out of the dirt. They have to pick you up and brush you off, and you have to let people be there for you to do that. It's never weak to say, I need help, or I need a hand, or I'm not doing well, because the people that love you want to hear that from you. And if they don't, get rid of those people. So
I think you touched on a really impressive point, and something that, like, regardless of if you're an athlete or not, like, you can relate to. Like, as humans, we do this weird thing of putting our worth into something we can't control, right? Like, I was the same way with soccer, and it could be taken away at any moment, right? So people who put it within their careers, or like maybe my worth comes from being a really good wife or something. While that's like commendable and admirable, it's not realistic, because that kind of thing is not in your control. And so when you lose that, it can really make you spiral. And I think, especially from my interactions with men, it's like that's something you're not necessarily pushed to search for. Like you put your worth in something and people kind of are like, yes, perfect,
right,
keep your worth there, as opposed to like, but what's your purpose?
Right.
Like, you know?
Right.
So is that something you kind of experienced too?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that I was able to detach myself from football very quickly when I got done. And I've seen teammates and people I don't know have a really hard time with that detachment, because, you know, I was really good in school. I lived a privileged lifestyle growing up. You know, my mom gave me everything I needed. She set me up to live the life that I, you know, even do today. Like, so when I finished college, I knew that I had options, right? I knew where I was gonna land. I knew I had aspirations to be like my mom. Like, I'm gonna be in an office one day. I'm gonna put on a suit and tie.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. That's who I was gonna be. I knew. But I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially in athletics. It's like, okay, and especially with football, which is a sport you can't play forever. Like, you know, like basketball, you can go overseas and play a long time. You can play golf your whole life.
Yeah.
You know, you can go play soccer. There's soccer everywhere. But people aren't putting football leagues together, so you can go live out your dream, and then your body breaks down more than probably any other sport in football. So I think that I was able to take my experience in college and use it to drive me to where I was going to go next. Like, I knew I could, as someone who didn't have a lot of work experience in college, I was able to take my college experience and communicate that in a job interview. Like, this is who I am as a person, and this is why you should see my worth, because of the things I've been able to accomplish in my life thus far. And that usually resonated with people. So I think if you can, whatever it is that you do, even if your accomplishment was in college, communicate those accomplishments to people and why you think you got there. Because everybody can sports resonates with everyone, you know, and it's not just sports. Like, I went through something tough and I made it through, and that is a story that everyone can relate to. So I think that's important.
So where do you kind of place your worth now?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because, like, the reality is, you're worthy.
Right.
Even if you wanted to lay in this bed all damn day, like, your ass is still worthy. You know? So it's like, it's interesting to kind of see where people, actually place their worth in a society where a lot of times it's in success or accomplishments, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think and I was actually talking to my Bible study group about this, is that I don't look too far ahead anymore, because I feel like the finish line often never feels as good as we think it will.
Yes.
You know, like, you want something so bad, you put your whole life, and it feels great for that moment. Maybe a day, maybe a week, maybe a year, maybe 2, maybe 10. But we live much longer than that.
Yeah.
So when I try to live every day like I'm gonna get to where I need to get by doing the work today.
Yeah.
Right? And I think my worthiness comes from, what type of human being am I?
Yes.
What type of relationships do I have? We've talked about, like, I have a phenomenal group of friends. I have a great family. My worth is tied up into, I've created those relationships, those strong relationships. And that's where I applaud myself, is that, man, I have put some really great people in my life. And that makes me feel good. So, I'm hoping that, like, at some point turns into, like, a wife one day. Like, let me find a good wife, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's next, hopefully. But yeah, I think that's probably the only thing that's important to me right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know during your collegiate career, you were kind of like the man, right? Like
Ooh.
you're a few years older than me.
Yeah.
My age group, some of our closer friends, they kind of were your little minions.
Yeah, well, shout out to the Trying to Be Grown podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, she's referring to them. I don't think I ever tried to be a role model, but I wanted it to be cool to it's cool to get good grades.
Yes.
It's cool to go to class. It's cool to work your tail off in the weight room because you get to a certain level of college sports and the cool thing is I don't go to class but I still play. I hang out in the back of the weight room. So I would definitely not refer to myself as the man, but I think that if somebody were to see me, they would be like, that's something that I can aspire to be like, because I don't have all the stats, I don't have an All-American and All-Conference and all that jazz, and that's great, because I would have taken it, right?
Yeah.
But I think that there's things that, speaking of my little minions, if there's any things that they remember about me, Nick just did it the right way.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do it the right way too. It's cool to do it like that.
And as you've kind of evolved and, they have evolved, how has your conversation about mental health in that friend group either increased or changed? What's the dynamic there?
You know what? It's interesting because, it's not weird to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? I was on the Trying to Be Grown podcast, and I think we hit on it at some point just about because I think mental health is so important to so many different things. We might have hit on relationships, but
and we'll leave that here because that episode was fire.
But overall insecurity as a man breeds so many bad things within a relationship. So if you can't be secure in who you are as a person, I think what we talked about is, my woman has this, or maybe she has more than me. Are you insecure about that? You know what I mean? Or my woman looks like this, godly, she's beautiful and I'm not, are you insecure about that because she wants to go out and be cute? Or, she pays the mortgage at the house because she has a great job.
Yeah.
Those insecurities are things that have really been passed down through generations, similar to that men can't cry.
Yeah.
Men can't be upset. Men can't be sad or depressed. That's not a male trait. All of it connects with one another, and so it's important just to talk about that. And we don't have any problem talking about those things. And I can say when we were in college, when they were freshmen, 2015, 2016, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
And that was 5-6 years ago. So you that things have changed.
Yeah, and it's super interesting because I had the honor of being on that podcast as well. And also my conversations, I was able to reconnect with them off of our growth with mental health, and now it's like you said, when we were freshmen in college, none of that. No way would I ever picture myself sitting down and talking about mental health with them.
Right.
At all. So it's I love that either it's because of COVID or just how the world is evolving, but now it is becoming more commonplace to talk about mental health and everything. You have been so open about you have gone to therapy and how you felt about it, and so is that also something that you've spoken on with them?
I don't know if we've spoken about it directly, but it's something I'm pretty outspoken about, right? I'm never hiding it. We've talked about it. I went to therapy because I had a lot of skeletons in my closet that I just needed to release. And I've had such good people around me, and Nick, you're so great, and you're such a good person, and this, and I'm just that's not helped me feel better though.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to go have a conversation with a stranger who doesn't know anything about you, whose opinions are not based on what they know about you. And that was so important for me, just to go and just kind of speak my truth and feel I've now let this go, because I used to tell the same story to all my friends and I would get the same feedback, like,
Yeah.
oh, you're so self-aware, and you're so good about this, that, and the other.
Yeah, it's almost that toxic
Yeah,
positivity.
yeah.
Like not saying on purpose.
Right, and
but
it's out
like,
of love. Like
yeah.
it's completely
It's like I'm
out of
supporting
love.
you, I'm supporting you.
Yeah, but it just like wasn't helping, and I just remember the first time I went, and I was just like, man, I think I cried to Joyce Coleman. Shout out Joyce Coleman, Creve Coeur, Missouri. But I left there and I just felt like so relieved, as if like I had left a piece of what was weighing me down for so long in that room with her.
Yeah.
I cried. I'm like, I'm crying in front of this stranger. I don't know. I'm gonna cry in front of people. Like, what in the world?
Yeah.
But crying isn't a bad thing. Then I went again and did the same thing, and she really just shifted my mindset to things I can be grateful for now, and the things that I'm beating myself up about did not keep me from my current blessings, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're beating yourself up, but like you're still, good things are still happening for you. Like,
yes.
The world is not beating you down. You are beating yourself down. And once you can forgive yourself for whatever happened, then you'll be able to move on. And once I was able to do that, it's like this light bulb went off in my life, and I've been able to handle other things so much better by getting rid of the old and being able to reflect on the fact that what is most important.
Yes.
Right? So yeah, it was huge for me.
There's been research and studies have kind of shown that we as humans, so let's say for instance you're about to go to the dentist, right? And you know that it's going to be an hour of pure pain, right? And you have this one option of an hour of pure pain, and then the second option of 2 hours of pure pain, right? So you would think that as a human, you would pick the first one. But studies have shown that kind of how we end things can determine how we overall feel about them. So if at the very end of your 2-hour painful dentist appointment, it doesn't feel as bad, then the 1 hour one, you'll actually remember the 2-hour dentist appointment more favorably. Yeah. So it's interesting because like we as humans kind of cling to like negative
trauma. Yeah,
a little more tightly. But if we finish things in a positive way, it can overall like raise how that experience felt to us.
Yeah, like overrides the idea that was not a good experience.
Yeah.
But I made it through, so it can't be that bad. And doesn't that sound like college sports,
yeah.
right? Like,
dear God.
Like how many workouts you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
You're like crawling on the ground,
yes.
and your coach is like, good job, and you're like, damn,
yeah,
you
okay,
right?
Like,
It was a good ass workout.
We tough as hell, for real.
But I always think that's so interesting, and it like goes to show that a little bit of kindness can overall impact someone so much, right? Like if you kind of have a shitty experience with the barista, like they're being a dick all damn day, and at the very end they're like, but I really like your shirt. You're like, they were kind of nice.
I like this shirt too.
Yeah. If you need to go back to therapy, would that be something you're comfortable stepping back into?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would have no problem at all. I think that I'm actually certified in like mental health first aid, so some of the things that are like most important, I think, is that you have to understand that going to one therapist doesn't have to be like if you have an experience you don't like, go try to find another therapist.
Yes.
Like you don't have to stay with this person that doesn't make you comfortable, you don't feel like you can open up to. Like don't let that be, wow, I had a bad experience, I can't go back. Because there's therapists everywhere. I mean, you could call somebody on the phone, you could do it on Zoom now, you can go meet them in person.
Apps.
There's so many different ways.
And it's like dating.
Yeah.
Like it really is. Like you have to find the shoe that fits.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it may take some time, but I think that mental health is work just like physical health, right? Like you're not gonna fix what's going on. You're not gonna fix your body one day in the gym. If you want to lose 20 pounds, you can go to the gym for 6 hours and it won't happen that first day.
Yeah.
But if you go for 45 minutes for 6 weeks, you will see a difference in your body, just like therapy. Like you're not gonna fix it all in one day, but if you can be consistent and say, you know what, I'm going to put the work in to do this because I care about myself.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who I feel like have great physical health and don't have the discipline for their mental health, and it's like they go together.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's another big point.
Yeah, completely. Do you feel like you currently have like a solid mental health routine?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just a very self-aware individual.
Yeah.
Like, so if things aren't feeling right, I don't mind telling my loved ones, like, I'm just feeling off,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, I've talked to some friends, and, you know, I've turned 28 on Tuesday, and I got a lot of friends who are getting engaged and getting married.
Party at his place. Everyone show up.
But, you know, a lot of people are getting married and engaged, and it's just like, nobody talks about how that affects a man. Like women, it's like, oh my God, girl, when are you gonna get married? But nobody, like with a man, it's just like, you know, nobody thinks about that. That could be impacting a man too. Like,
yeah.
I'd like to get married too. Like, I obviously want to get married one day. I have single friends, and I have friends who are engaged and married, and, you know, we often talk about, like, we aspire. Like, we want to be in that spot too. But, like, I'm not going to rush it, or I'm not going to settle. But it's definitely like, dang, like, I'm probably not going to have a kid until I'm like 30 at this point. Like, at least if I'm going to wait until I get married. And I'm just like, that's so crazy to think about. Because when you're a kid, you're like, I'm going to have a baby when I'm like 23 or 24.
Yeah, you think that's old as hell?
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's so normal. Like, then you're like adding, like, how old will I be when they're 14 or 15? Yeah. But now I'm like, I'm being an old dad, but like, luckily I don't look that old, so it probably won't hurt me too much.
Yeah, you got that baby face.
But yeah, it's definitely something that, you know, we all think about, and then just tying it back to therapy, that if I felt like I needed to go back, I would have no problem going back, and I'd probably try to find Joyce again.
Hell yeah. How do you feel that like younger generations should kind of look at therapy? Growing up, the way I looked at it was even stigmatized.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking about the generations below us. They don't give a fuck. Like they're gung ho. They're gonna go for what they want. So I feel like it is getting normalized in that generation as well. But how can we kind of set that example? I
think things like the Heartfelt Club, you know, it's in a place where young people can see it. You know, social media is so powerful, and it has its negatives and things that are just like, wow, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Right? But it can be so powerful if we use it in the right ways. Like, you know, 13, 14, 15-year-old boy or girl runs across the Heartfelt Club, and it's like, wait, this is like normal? And they normalize it because they see it on a platform they use all the time.
Yes.
You know? It's not something mom and dad said, here, you need to go to the Heartfelt Club, you know? And hopefully at some point that is, you know?
Yeah.
But as of right now, it's at their fingertips, and just thinking about how well you marketed with, you know, the barcode, you know, and just in the shirts, and being able to having that information on hand. Kids are better with their phones than we are, especially at their age. So like being able to pull your phone out and be like, what is that? You know, it's so normal for them. Mm-hmm. So I think that we have to continue to push it, but I think that there are worlds beyond where we are. Just about everything: politics, race, religion, sexuality. Like, they're gonna talk about it. They're gonna be about it. They don't give a damn.
Hell yeah.
So, you know, kudos to them.
Yeah, it is really nice to see. All right. So this man, I value his opinion above a lot of people's. Like, we have some crazy conversations for sure. But today, we're going to see what the hat holds. We got no cap going on. So we did a poll, and we let people kind of decide what they wanted to hear us chit-chat about. So I'm thinking we'll just pull a few, and totally opinion-based between the two of us, we're going to discuss some shit. Would you like to go enter the no cap zone?
Let's see it.
Woo!
Testing people.
Ooh, yes. In relationships?
Yeah, let's go.
This is my toxic trait. This is for sure my toxic trait. And I see now why it's toxic. Because it's not fair. Like, I will set tests for men they don't even know about. And their ass is failing. And they're like, wait, what is happening? Right? Like, I remember in college, one of my biggest ones was I would let my man do whatever he wanted, for sure. But in a bar, if a girl came up to talk to him and he didn't make eye contact with me from across the room, I was like, he cheating. He's cheating! I'd be like, oh, get him, girl! And then we'd be in a fight because I'd be like, no, you should have looked at me.
He has no idea.
He's like, well, you should have interrupted the conversation. And I'm like, nope, that's not my job. Like, you should have looked at me. So I feel that we as women, at least a lot of women I know, and myself included, this is what we do to an extent.
Yeah, I can't say I test people too much, but I definitely agree that women have like checkpoints in dating, whether it's like we're just dating or we are together. There's like, I'm gonna see if he does this or not, and if he doesn't pass, then I'm going ghost. And you're like, well, I didn't even know. Like, if you that's what you wanted, just say that. I can do that. You know, so yeah, I don't test people too much because I know I don't like to be tested. So I'm like, I can't do that one.
Well, and I feel like if you want to build a solid relationship, it's like after said test, you kind of have to explain what happened, right? Like, I needed to sit him down and be like, I would have liked you to still approach me this way.
Right.
Or whatever. And then the second time is when maybe it's like a pass or fail.
Yeah.
You know, because then it's like, you know my boundaries.
Right.
Can you respect them in that way?
That would be like the more sane way of going about it.
Yeah, well, I was not sane in college, as you know. Understanding love languages.
Oh, Lord, this one. Man.
Woo! I had this conversation with Byron and Tamani on their podcast. And
Trying to be grown, shout out.
Yep.
Love languages. See, now this is what I'll say. Women say they have love languages. They have all of them. Y'all don't have no. I have not yet. Just if a woman says that physical touch is not her love language, she just don't want you. That's it. Because every woman is like, I need you on me like a jacket at all times. Like, be within my skin. Like, and yes, say nice things. Do nice things. Like, I don't even know all the love languages, but I know for me it was like quality time.
Nice. And
words of affirmation.
I can see that.
And what is it, like gifts or service or something?
Yeah,
like I love acts of service. I don't even know how I still remember this. Me and my ex-girlfriend used to go through this all the time because hers was like physical touch. And all of them, you know, like all of them. So I mean, like with me, I think as a younger man, you don't understand how much like women really like to be touched.
Yeah.
Like, they want you on them all the time. And I remember being like freshman in college and I'm like, dang, like she want me on her all the time. And it never gave up, never let up for as long as we dated. And as an older man, you learn that like, that's a part of dating. Like, that's just how women are chemically made up. Like they want you on them, in their space. And if that's something you don't like, then you probably don't need to date. But they are important because if you can, anything that gets a relationship to communicate is so important. Hey, I don't like when you touch me like that. Or I don't like when you say those things. Yeah. You know, I was like somebody who was like really playful and just like, I'm walking by and I just like to nudge her on the shoulder. Like when I was dating her and she stopped me and she was like, that's triggering for me because I dated a guy who was kind of abusive. Gotcha. And I was like, oh, wow. So it's like, I'm sorry, right? Like I'm thinking I'm being playful and that's not something, I mean, we're walking down the street and I just bump her just to
and props to her for like sharing that with you.
So, anything that makes you communicate is important, but Lord, it's like those doggone what do you call them? Astrology signs, bro. Astrology and word and love languages. But I'm gonna let you tell me about you.
Well, I mean, it comes in percentages, you know. And I think one thing that's interesting, my love languages are not what I expected. Like, I take the test and I'm like, oh shit, that's true, but I would have thought it was this way. And then I realized that, like, we as people, honestly, you know how it's like, treat people how you want to be treated? That shit is so true in relationships, right? Because I'm doing things that I would want you to do for me. So, like, I'm serving you my love language as opposed to serving yours. So I think it's really interesting. And I've had, like, really healthy relationships. I've had really unhealthy relationships. But the healthy ones, it was like that, where it's like, this is how I like to be loved. And I could provide that once I knew, and they could provide it for me as well.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's really interesting. Love languages are worth, like, just hopping online and taking that test.
Yeah.
And I have this great website, which I will link below. I took that test. I took the anger test to see, like, where you're at with, like, how you control your anger.
Yeah.
I still got a little work to do. They were like, you're doing all right. But they weren't, like, raving about me. It was pissed.
They're trying to say it in a nice way.
I'm, like, smashing the computer.
Yeah.
No. And then they have an apology test. Now, this is what I needed growing up. This apology test. Because it's like, people would come to me and apologize, like, profusely.
Yeah.
And I still couldn't be like, oh, we're good.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't forgive them because there were certain things I needed in that apology for me to take it seriously.
Right.
Which is really interesting, and I honestly never, like, thought about. So I think that's, like, worth checking on, is, like, hopping in and doing those tests.
Right.
All right, let's pull another card, baby.
Okay. Why is it so hard to communicate romantically?
Oof. So this one, I DM'd them back and was, like, chit-chatting about it. So what they mean is, like, as friends, you can communicate, especially I feel like you can communicate so well with your female friends. And sometimes when maybe sex is added or feelings are involved, it becomes so hard.
Right.
And I've definitely seen that. I've experienced it where it's like, I can talk to you about anything. Like, we're super transparent with each other. And then, like, the concept of romance gets added. And it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to tell him that. Because, like, what if he sees me this way, you know? So what's your opinion on that?
You know, I'm like it's hard because I think it's a personality trait where I'm just like an open book anyway.
Yeah.
And I would like to over communicate. So, you know, this is what I always talk, and I talk about this in my work when I do leadership counseling, but like, you can have a difficult conversation now or a more difficult conversation later, because it's, you want to talk romantically with somebody, you're going to have to break that ice at some point. You don't want to break it while you're laying in bed and you're like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. And they're like, no. And you're just like, okay, well, let me just go disappear. So, I mean, I don't think it ever gets easy. I think once you start to invest your time into people that are reciprocating the emotion, then it becomes easier, right? It's like, don't put all your eggs in this basket of, in my case, for a girl who's like not putting no energy back into it. Like, you over here want to tell her who you are in every aspect of your life, and she's just like, oh, that's cool. And then like you all of a sudden want to change gears to like, you know, I want to see you, like, let's move this to the next. And she's like, I barely respond when we talk. Like, where did you think that we were going? So it's like, read the room, right? Like, a woman will never lie to you when you're speaking romantically. She will never make up. She'll never fake a feeling. Like, once she wants things to be known, she makes it known, right? And at least that's from my own experience. So I don't think it's something that, I think it's a conversation about romance should happen before you get there in the moment. And just like pick your battles, like pick the difficulty level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for real. I think for me, like, because I am super, super transparent, it's also because I don't want to waste my time. Like, I want to state my facts and see how you react so that I don't waste like 7 months or something. You know what I mean? And that goes even with friends, like I have so many girlfriends where I just like shot my shot. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I want to be your friend. Do you want to be my friend?
Right.
And they're either like, hell yeah, girl, or they're like, ew, weirdo. And I'm like, well, I didn't want you anyway. I'm like, we don't need to be friends anyway. So it's like, to me, it's a time saver.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to know all the creep shit in your head if you're my friend.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna have sex, I want to know even more of the creep
like,
shit.
Please don't
Like,
surprise
yeah,
me with
please.
none of those stuff you want to try.
So I think, like, we as society also have to stop assuming. Like, if you and I are dating and I want to talk about something, I can't immediately assume how you're going to react to that conversation, right? Because I might be like, he's going to be so mad when I tell him this.
Right.
And you might not even care. Like, you might be like, that's okay. Like, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But if I don't give you that opportunity and I just assume, like, he's going to be pissed, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Then again, makes it harder when you get to a situation and he's reading things incorrectly.
Okay. How to help a partner who struggles with mental health. I think this one is huge, obviously, as we talk about mental health all the time. But it's also huge because it's a lot more simple than people think. Just in the sense that, like, for instance, there's an amazing book. It's called Option B. And it's basically about a woman who tragically loses her husband, like, completely abruptly. And then she felt like she lost all of her friends too, because no one knows how to talk about hard conversations, right? So they choose silence over, they're afraid to say the wrong thing. So I would say, when you're with someone who struggles with mental health, it can be as simple as, I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you if you'd like me to know. That can go miles, right? That can be, okay, they'll respect when I can't get out of bed and I have to cancel our date, right?
Yeah.
So I think it can be as simple as that, and then you can learn the intricacies, like how they would like to be supported.
Right, like give them the space to navigate. Give them space to navigate, because if they're trying to date or you're dating, it's because they care a lot about you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to give them the space and give them like an avenue to communicate if they like. And then I think if you really care about somebody, you do your own mental health research, because like, you know, I think it's like dating somebody who's maybe disabled or handicapped, or you're in an interracial relationship. There are things that you'll never understand about their lifestyle that you either need to ask about, or like maybe you go do your own research, because like you're taking on whatever they struggle with is now going to become your struggle if you really care about them. So if it's your mental health, then like you need to improve your own knowledge of mental health and what you can do to support them. And I think something like the Heartfelt Club is a good way you can do that.
Yeah. And I think, like, as you touched on, obviously it does depend on the level of seriousness within that relationship, because there does come a point when you have to protect your own mental health. And if it's like, I'm helping you to the best of my ability and it's still deteriorating for both of us, like, it is totally appropriate to wish someone well and, you know, help them find resources and step away. So I think that's really important to touch on too. But yeah, so don't allow that silence. Like, if you're with someone and you want to help them, break the ice. Don't be afraid to say the wrong thing, because it allows them space to let you know what's up and how to help. So with that being said, I think it's a great time to do our calls to action. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go right ahead.
Yeah, I gotta think of mine. All right, so as we kind of touched on with experiences and how to kind of make sure every experience you finish in a more positive light. So for the rest of this week or the next 3 days after you see this video, try and end every interaction with another human being in a positive way. Even if that person is shitty. Like, don't let them steal your joy. Be like, you look amazing today, as they cuss at you, right? No, but seriously, end every interaction you can with a piece of positivity and see how it impacts your mood, and let us know.
Since this is the Heartfelt Club directed mostly towards men, I would say as a man, we need to prioritize the comfort of women. However you go about doing that, right? if it's how you communicate, if you're going on a date, give her space, right? If you're talking to someone over social media or a dating app, like, give her the space to tell you who she is or how she wants to be treated. Because too many times as men, we kind of project what we want out of the relationship or the interaction, and that creates uncomfortable space. And you know, we're trying to build comfort for everyone, and if you like women, you want them to be comfortable with you. So that's my call to action.
Yes.
To prioritize the comfort of women.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stepping into the Heartfelt Clubhouse. We are happy to have you.
Thank you.
And don't forget to go out there and be more heartfelt. Woo! As always, if you or someone you know is in crisis, to speak with someone immediately, contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-2855. That's 1-800-273-TALK. Contact Lifeline Crisis Chat or contact the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, at 800-950-6264, or text NAMI, NAMI, to 741741. Thank you, and don't forget to be more heartfelt.